Coming up on this episode, for a change, me and Dave are going to get political. It's all kicking off in the UK with the elections and a bunch of terms getting thrown around that I'm not too sure on. Like Conservative and Labour, other than child labour. I know what that means, but what the hell does it mean in terms of politics? And what is a Lib Dem? All of this needs to be explained to me because I'm a dullard, to say the least. But I want it in simple terms, so that is what we're going to try to do today. And this handsome so-and-so is going to explain it.
Try to.
So without further ado, let's go get into it. What's going on, beautiful people? This is the Perspective Chasers podcast. I'm your host, John.
And I'm political.
Which is actually going to be handy for a change. And on this episode, we are going to break down everything UK politics. That's not even the right way to say it. This is why I need you to explain all of this.
On this episode, I explain politics to a man who doesn't understand politics, and we talk about UK politics with a little bit of worldwide politics. And hopefully you try and understand it.
It's definitely going to be far more understandable than the terms that they flow around.
Political.
We tried to make this dummy proof.
Yeah,
and I'm the dummy.
What is a Liberal Democrat? What's a Democrat? What's a Prime Minister?
Somebody that could hold a slap big time.
Did you know, dun dun dun,
Oh, is it a political one?
that the first Prime Minister of the United Kingdom was in 1721?
I thought you was going to say was insane then. I was about to say sounds about right.
Sir Robert Walpole.
So what did we have before Prime Ministers?
A monarchy.
Yeah, but we've still got a monarchy.
But now it's constitutional, my dear.
What does that mean?
They don't really do anything.
They're
They're
just
allowed
there
to
for
be
show.
that because the government says fine. Whereas before, the king or queen told you how you're going to do things. And it's like the whole history of Henry VIII in the church.
So for, what is it, 304 years? We've had MPs?
Well done. Yes, good maths. And they basically, it was the Whig Party and the Tory Party.
Whig Party, what's that?
That was the name of the first political party.
Are they the ones that all had syphilis so they had to wear wigs?
No. But we'll chat about it later, don't you worry.
I need this explained to me so much.
I'll talk about them later on in the show, don't you worry. But those two parties started because one was like, no, we like the king. The other one was like, no, we don't like him really, mate. And we think he should be democratic. No, it's nonsense. And that's how it started.
Fair. Well, that's the core basics of it. Should we actually go get into the guts of it?
I mean, if Guy Fawkes was successful, we wouldn't be here doing this episode, would we?
I mean, if many people through history were successful, we probably wouldn't be here, or speaking alternative languages, or whatever else.
Let's get into this.
Right, let's go get political.
Let's eat.
Eh?
Let's eat.
After.
Oh.
First, let's bite into this subject.
Oh. It's just flavourless.
Politics tends to be pretty flavourless.
If only it was. Then we wouldn't have all the problems we have now. Again, we'll get into that down the line.
Right, let's go get serious for a second. Bro, I need to know what the hell is going on with politics.
I think everyone does, mate.
Like, they're throwing out more simple terms these days, like reform, instead of like conservative and Lib Dem that seem to be some type of cryptography.
Are you saying Lib Dem because you don't know the full name?
Liberal Democrats.
Hey, good man.
I do. But again, what the hell does that mean? Like, seriously, it's just jargon to me, and hopefully most people, or just me.
What's a Democrat?
I don't know.
Well, we live in a democracy, right?
Yeah.
A Democrat would be someone of a democracy, wouldn't it?
Yes, but what does it mean to be a Democrat?
Someone who's in a democracy. To me, anyways.
Yeah, but
I'm sure there's an official term, but...
that's like saying, what does it mean to be a cat or to be a feline? Like, it don't quite explain what it is. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, what the hell is a Democrat when all is said and done? Like, other than...
An advocate or a supporter of democracy. So basically what I just said. In a way. So someone that is pro-democracy. We live in a democracy. We are pro-democracy.
And a democracy is a
country
government chosen by the people,
Correct.
opposed to a
The ability to
dictatorship.
vote for a government. A dictatorship is one outright ruler.
I say you do.
Correct.
And a democracy is meant to be we say you do. But I beg to differ on that most of the time.
Yeah.
So then, conservative is... Conservative is...
So this kind of stuff is more about like your set of beliefs and your kind of values. Is kind of what defines what that is. So let me have a little look for like official.
Because I'm just trying to work out how the categories bloody work. Because that's where it gets confusing for me. Because like you said there, straight away...
So the actual definition of conservative is someone who's averse to change or innovation and holding traditional values. But in a political sense, the definition is someone who favors free enterprise, private ownership, and socially traditional ideas. So they're more traditional people. They're people who tend to believe like, especially like UK based. So they typically believe in a one nation UK, not splitting it up. It is Scotland, it is England, it is Wales, it is Northern Ireland. That is the great, United Kingdom.
Okay, so is it...
They would normally believe in lower tax.
Mm-hmm.
They would normally believe in free business, so just trading across the world. They're normally globalist. So they believe in their own nation, but they believe in the ability of their nation to be on the world stage. Mm-hmm. So if you go back in time to when we were growing up and stuff like that, that's what conservatism would have been. Would have been free trade. We work with France, we work with the EU, we'll work with America, we'll work with New Zealand. We don't really mind. As long as it's a good trade for everyone, we'll do it.
Right. So dummy proof this for me. So what we've been majorly experiencing for the last 20, 30 years or recent history is either a conservative or a Lib Dem government.
No.
No?
God, no. What? Conservative or Labour government. We're currently in a Labour government.
Okay. And that's the one with Keir Starmer.
Correct.
Oh, he could hold a slap so bad.
Sir Keir Starmer. He is a sir.
Sir something.
Sir Keir Starmer. So since we've been graced with our presence on this planet, it has been Conservative, it has been Labour, then Conservative, all the way up until the last election.
Right. So, as far as I understand it, this reform has only recently actually got any seats and actually become a kind of contender in the race. So, where do they come into it in terms...
That statement alone annoys me, but go
on. Am I wrong?
Yeah. Yes and no. Yes, they are a contender in the future if things keep going how they are going. Mm-hmm. No, they're not a contender right now, in my opinion, because as much as, bearing in mind you don't follow politics, right? But if you look at the headlines and if you run your research, I guarantee that you've been told there are three parties that are the big parties in the UK, which is Labour, Conservatives, and Reform, right? Mm-hmm. Right. Liberal Democrats have more seats in Parliament. So they have more members of Parliament, more representation across the UK than Reform does. So how could they be the third biggest party when they have 5 or 6 MPs, I think? The Lib Dems are well up there in the 50s plus, I think. So by actual factual size of representation, in my opinion, the Liberal Democrats are the third biggest party in the UK. And they have been for a long time.
Okay.
They have become a bit more prevalent in the last few years than they ever were. Reform have a handful of MPs in areas that no one cares about. Like seaside towns. No offense, guys.
But I think it's because they've had such a kind of rapid growth in the last year or so.
Yes, they have. What does reform mean to you?
Change.
Okay.
Restructure.
Right.
And anything you instantly assume rearranging. And this is what's kind of perked my ears up on this. Is because, again, straight away, like I said at the beginning, those initial political terms just kind of go over your head and you're just like, they're just talking politics, blah, blah, blah. But as soon as you kind of dial it down and go, cool, reform, straight away, that's a far more recognizable word in that sense.
Yeah.
So you think restructure, you think change, you think this, that, and everything else. Same sense with like Green Party. What do I think? They're environmental. I know bugger all about them, but I would put money on that they're more for the environment than any of the other parties.
They are. They're pro-environmental, anti-austerity, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. So there are some things that you just kind of take from the headlines. Do you know what I mean? But is that in itself a misdirection? What the hell do they stand for? What is reform?
Well, that's kind of a good question, because not a lot. Like this is so, Labour and Conservative parties have been there since Kingdom Come. They are derivatives of the first ever political parties in the late 1800s.
Okay.
The Whig Party and the Tory Party. The Whig Party moved on and became basically like Liberal Democrat Party, so Labour would have splintered off along the way. The Tory Party directly became the Conservative Party, hence why they nicknamed the Tories.
So they are kind of...
Which is why they don't have the flashy, get your attention headline name. Those names have been institutions.
But they are kind of splinters off of the same tree in that sense. Or branches off the same tree. To a degree,
yeah.
But if you go back far enough...
They both come from probably the same roots, which was there was already a division with one side believing this, one side believing that, and that has evolved into what we have now.
So I guess, obviously, you've got the Lib Dems, but are all of our parties democratic to an extent? Obviously, we've got nobody going like...
They are all democratic from the fact that they are trying to get you to vote for them, so yes.
Yeah. So,
whether the actual individuals are pro-democracy or not, you don't really know until they decide to start doing things. But by the by, yes, they should be democratic.
See, that's the thing. So why is it only highlighted with the Lib Dems that obviously the Democrat... Because again, that's just something that's always thrown me off.
It's just the name they became.
Fair.
I don't really know the history of the Lib Dems, I'll be honest with you. I don't know the history of the political parties like super deep, but I do know, as I said, Labour and Conservatives. Sorry. Conservatives stem directly from that Tory party, which is one of the OG parties. Two OG parties. Tory party became Conservatives. The Whig party did directly go into the Liberal Democrat Party. Labour would have formed on its own somewhere along the line in the, I think, 1900s or something like that.
I wonder back then how much there would have been actual OG antics going on. Because everybody knows there's like a political code and handshake deals and this and that. Not accusing anybody of anything, but hey, things are going to happen. Like, how much of it is going to stem back from... Like, because again, all of this stuff ends up going around the same kind of circles, the same kind of universities stem out the politicians, and am I wrong in saying that?
No, that is starting to change though.
But then are they going to the more out there parties, or are they going to those top three parties?
Well, the ones that go to the kind of universities that you're referencing would be probably more likely to go conservative because of their upbringing.
Fair. But then, so what kind of universities come to mind if you was to think something that would go on the opposition?
They don't.
So
there's certain private schools and universities are very associated with conservatism. Think your Oxford, your Cambridge, your Eton. Is it Eton, the private school? Whatever the bloody Eton. That's the one.
Eton Maths.
That's kind of that directly in my head says conservative. I'm sure there's some of them in Labour as well. I'm not gonna pretend I know, but I don't really associate anything else with anyone else.
So,
but that's more of an affiliation because of numbers. You know what I mean?
In terms of reform, would you say they're kind of anti-elitist in that sense? Like they don't stem from the universities and all of the kind of big wigs?
I mean, I don't know if they do or don't, but they portray a semblance of anti-establishment, yeah.
Okay. Do you think that's good for the country, or...?
No.
Why?
It's too much of a disruptor, and I don't think anything actually gets done. I think it causes more problems than it actually fixes. And this is the big problem we have with the world's politics at the moment. The world is suffering from populism.
Define?
I like that person, so I'm going to vote for them. Look at America's president. He is the definition of populism. What's it doing? Because it's not doing much good. I will say this before people harp on at me and go, oh no, you can't say that. There are one or two things that he's actually done that people will deem as good for America, if you are American. But that is about it. He's destroyed their economy. He's destroyed their networks with the rest of the world. He's isolating them. What good does being an isolated country actually do in the modern world? It doesn't. And he is a Republican. Republicans are conservative by nature. So think globalism, free trade, traditional values. So shutting your country off from the rest of the world doesn't fit those values. It's a direct contrast to those values.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to you're going to tank your own country. Countries are designed to bounce off of each other now. That's how economies now work, right? You can't be self-sufficient anymore. You can't just be like, we make everything, we sell everything. It doesn't work like that.
But I think this is kind of what, especially recent history's kind of highlighted, and a lot of, especially the stuff that I have listened to that covers the kind of political aspect of things and that, they explain the fact of like how much trade, and I mean we're even going to experience it in the upcoming weeks of like narrowing trade, and whether that be through some of the actions that you're talking about from these political parties or just different things around the world, like certain parts of the world are having electrical fires and just general blackouts and problems with electricity. That's going to affect trade, that's going to affect manufacturing, that's going to affect general industry. There's so many cogs that turn in that sense that it is going to be... I guess what I'm trying to say is that I do see an element where it's valid to try to keep X amount of stuff in-house. Think if you're outsourcing all of your medicine, all of your food and da-da-da-da-da. Like, bro, we're in the UK. It's a small country in comparison to the amount that we consume. We import a lot of stuff. When things like COVID hit and the country gets locked down and we have problems at the borders or whatever else, outsourcing ain't an option. So I can understand when you've got somewhere as big as America, you've got that much landmass, be like, hey, we've got the space to do it ourselves. Why are we not doing it? And da-da-da-da-da.
I can give you simple answers as to why they're not.
Go for it.
Okay. So to make things, that means you need to be industrial. Right. Now, you are part of the same generation as me, so generations are shifting. Now, if I open a brand new factory and I say, hey, I want you to work here 5 days a week, maybe 6, maybe 7, and I'm going to pay you minimum wage, but you're going to work like 12 to 14-hour shifts, you saying yes?
Honestly, it would depend on the pay rate.
I just told you.
Sorry.
It's minimum wage. And you ain't getting no raise.
Mm.
And yeah, it's hot. Yeah, it's dirty. It's nasty. I ain't paying, but I want you to bust your back for me to make this country great. No, you don't. Because if you did, you would have said yes already. You don't. And that's because as the demographics are shifting, people's aspirations are shifting. People don't want to break their backs in factories anymore. It is not the 1960s. And that's not me being derogatory. Yeah. I respect the hell out of people who have done that. I've done physical labor. You've done physical labor. We don't like it. Because we are way more health conscious. We have bigger dreams. We have bigger visions. We have bigger values for ourselves now. People want more service-based jobs. People want to work in offices. People want to work from home. People don't want to wear overalls to work.
Some do.
Some, sure. Some. But the general population? Probably not. Especially not the younger side. And that is becoming your workforce. The older generation are going to stop being your workforce as the younger ones transition into that age.
I hear you, but at the same time, I kind of think the world could almost do with a bottleneck in a sense. Because, like, even when you're saying that, although I do think it is a valid pushback, straight away, my instant pushback from that is the world could do with less stuff. If we could actually dial things back and not make so much and actually be like, hey, what do we actually need to make? Do you actually want to be in control and kind of working from home, dictating your life in that way? Or do you want to be stamping metal and this and that? Not being funny, couple more years, AI is probably going to replace a lot of that manual stuff. I think it's Tesla
It'll be
factories.
further away in a couple of years, mate.
You'll be surprised.
No, I wouldn't be. I'm not diminishing AI. I know it's rapidly growing. It's not that close.
I mean, already they say Tesla factories are operated majority by machines and overseen by people. So, say a workforce that would have been 1,000 before could now be 100.
But how much of their car are they making, or how much of it are they assembling? There's differences. Because I know they're going to get hit with the tariff stuff. If you're getting hit with tariff stuff, that tells me you're importing stuff. So they're probably not making the sheet metal. They're probably assembling. Assembling, sure. Actual making, I reckon it's probably still a little bit further away.
See, the tariff stuff...
I'm not saying it's 20,000 years away. I don't know if it'd be like 2. But it's closer than people realise, most likely.
The tariff stuff gets confusing because as far as I understand it, the tariff doesn't actually hit the country it's imposed on. It hits the country's people that originated the tariff because it's the tariff on the imports. So the people of the country that imposed the tariff pay the X markup, whatever it is. So if the tariff is 110%, that gets passed on to the consumer, not the manufacturers, and it trickles down to...
Well, if I'm not mistaken, it's a tax you put on the country that is sending the goods to you. The problem with that is it's not that simple.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying, it's passed on.
Yeah, if you made, say, sheet metal for my car, and I've imported it with tariffs of, say, 50%. So say that cost me £1,000. I've now got to pay 1,500. So, someone's got to pay the money, right? So it's just going to get passed on. So the only person who gets screwed is the consumer.
Well, this is the thing. So in my head, I'm just like, okay, cool. Well, look, if we was in business together, I'm a baker, you're a sandwich maker or whatever else, and I've decided to up the price of my sandwiches, my bread for you. Now, you either up the price of your sandwiches for your customers, or you start losing money or operating at a loss or whatever else. And let's be honest,
your margins get hit.
No business wants to run at a loss. That's not the point of business.
It's not so much running at a loss, but it's running at a lower margin. So you'd be running at a lower profit margin. So you'd still be making profit, but no one's settling for making profit. They want the same profit.
It depends as well, though, how much you get hit with those tariffs, because there are some... This is where there's a kind of backhanded nature to the tariffs. If you export something to get it built or assembled and then import it back in, that gets hit with another charge.
Which was one of the issues between America and Canada. Is in the northern parts of America, certain manufacturers would do that. They would technically export it to Canada and then get it imported back in because it had to go there for refinement. So they would do something to it, send it to Canada, something would be done there, it would come back. So then you're getting hit again and again. Like, what?
But then we don't have anything like that at the minute over here in the UK, do we?
They have them on us.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is none of our politicians are running on tariffs as their kind of vote for me's.
No.
Do you know any of their big vote for me's?
I mean, the current government, which is the Labour government, there's Labour governments tend to be more left-wing, so more socialist. So for them, it's more about redistributing wealth, more about funding the NHS properly, more about protecting workers' rights, protecting renters' rights, and about nationalisation of things. So if I'm not mistaken, I think, because he's been in for a little while now, I think they put through a bill to renationalise the railways. So when franchises come to the end of their contract and then comes back under government control, they obviously had to kind of do a bit of a U-turn on the old financial stuff, didn't they? Because they raised national insurance for certain reasons.
Yeah, I see something about that, and supposedly it was like the biggest boo-boo in a long old time in like political history. Yeah, that's a big faux pas.
Well,
and they ain't actually apologised or kind of...
They don't need to apologise.
Acknowledged it.
They massively acknowledged it. They don't need to apologise for it.
How did they acknowledge it?
By doing it.
What do you mean?
Dude, doing something that big, which has affected you, because you will now pay more tax. You're acknowledging it by doing it. Like, they literally said, we don't have a choice. We have to do this.
Yes, but in terms of, like, they haven't acknowledged what they've done to the people. Like we're experiencing it. That's why I prefaced it with, like, they ain't apologized or da-da-da. They ain't kind of, like, backstepped and be like, hey, guys, we just kind of slapped you in the face. I'm sorry about that. Our bad.
In a way, they
Whoops.
don't. In a way, they don't have to apologize.
Really?
They're the government. They have to do what is deemed
See, that's what
best.
bugs me. Bro, if your boss walked past you and stepped on your toes, would you expect an apology?
Very different thing.
I don't think it is so much.
It is. That's a personal thing, and you're in my space. The government's in charge of a country. It's a big scale, bro.
If they're playing with your finances, are they not stepping on your toes?
Yeah, but they're doing it for everyone else too, homie.
So
I don't care.
That's like saying, like, yeah, but my boss steps on everybody's toes, so it's fine. It's just what they do.
The difference is, my boss steps on my toes. The apology actually does something. It means I understand it was a mistake, and he actually feels bad about it. The government apologizing means nothing to me. But it doesn't change the scenario.
That's what I'm getting at, though. It should. The government's word carries absolute nada these days. That's why I ignore them majority of the time. Most of their policies they don't uphold over time. They run on one thing, get elected, and do something completely different.
I think it's a little harsh for this government in the sense that they are doing some of the things they said they were going to do.
Some.
Yeah, bro, it's hard to do everything.
100%. But again...
All right, every month, you have to play around with your finances to do things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a juggling act, right? You need to know what's going out, what's coming in.
Yeah.
Do that for millions of people.
Okay.
And tell me it's now straightforward and easy.
Bro, I'm not saying it's straightforward.
But it's my point though, because I think people kind of oversimplify this when it's bonkers to me that they oversimplify it, right? And like this Reform Party are prime examples of this. They prey on that kind of stuff. It's not an oversimplified thing. You are running a country. You're talking billions of pounds. There's more zeros in that than I know. I don't even know how many zeros in a billion, bro.
Yeah, but that doesn't...
I know how many O's. Don't know how many zeros.
If I'm not mistaken, it's 8 or 9.
Right. You're also probably talking trillions, right? Now, just like us, as a person, we have debts, we have good things. So does a country. Way bigger ramifications for the country as a whole, bro. Because if that debt gets out of control, we're all screwed. It's 2008 all over again. Everyone loses their money. Your pensions are gone. Your investments are gone. You're done. You're toast, bro.
I hear that.
So when you have that much money, and so you have this much money, but the amount of things you need to spend on are here. And now you need to prioritize those. Now for us as humans, on a day-to-day, the priorities are quite linear and quite simple. I need to keep my roof over my head. I need to keep food in my belly. I need to make sure I stay alive. And then I need to stay moving. So you can rank the hierarchy of needs. Mm-hmm. Now do that for a country. It is not as simple as saying, like, they should apologize for doing this or they should do this. It's so layered. And that's why I was annoyed at the time, but I understand why they've done that.
I hear where you're coming from, but I think more of what I'm getting at is if you're running on policies, you should be running on policies that not only do you intend to uphold once you get into government, but you actually can uphold. So if you're over-promising, again, put it into the work environment, put it into our world of things. If you're going into a job interview and you're like, look, I'm going to turn this place around, give me 6 months and I'm going to get this and that. And then your higher-ups come round to you. Bearing in mind, we are the people. This is a democracy. The people are the government's higher-ups. They should answer to us. Am I not mistaken by that? Right? And now they've made these promises and not uphold them months and months down the line going, oh, well, we actually can't do that. That's not this. That's not that. We didn't know that. So even from the get-go, you've over-promised and that's how you've got the job.
Okay.
And now you're messed up back in the line. You're saying, hey, you're not even saying forgive me or give me this, that, or whatever else. You're like, you're just trying to move past it.
Okay, let me use another metaphor. Say you work in a company, right? Mm-hmm. And you apply to get promoted to a managerial position.
Yep.
But on the way into that interview, you say to all your team, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. but you don't know the facts and figures.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get the job, you see the facts and figures and realize that you can do this, but you can't do that. What are you doing?
Well, freaking addressing it.
Right. They did address it. What else you doing?
Try to correct my mistake.
But you can't correct the mistake. You can address it, and you can take the relevant steps that you need to take. You can't correct it. You said what you said. It's done.
I hear you. And again, maybe this is the problem with not being able to kind of follow all of it. You can't ever hear what everybody has to say about it.
Of course.
Do you know
And
what I mean?
I'm not an expert, but I'm coming at you with metaphors that explain it in layman's terms for you. They are campaigning on what they think they can do, on what they want to do, right? Them, if they was to go out and campaign and say, within 5 years we'll fix the debt, we won't have any debt, you're an idiot. We know you can't do that. That's not possible. Because if it was, it'd be done by now.
But see,
But for them to say things like, we're going to try and we don't want to increase taxes, but then to go into government and start looking at the balance sheet and go, oh, Ross, like this is problem C. Well, what can we do? And they kind of look at everything and go, mate. Like the one thing they're not going to want to do is what they said they're not going to do. And that's why they made a point of when they done it, they had speeches about it and everything where they said, the last government screwed us. Now we have to do this. We don't want to, but we have to. So they addressed it. Whenever they do big policy decisions, it's addressed. They can't just put something through the back door. It don't work like that, bro. That's democracy. It has to go through the House of Commons. It has to be basically passed. Then goes to the House of Lords, which I don't know why we have that. And then they have to approve it. Then it can become something. So there is processes on the way, bro. There has to be a majority approval from your MPs, who are your representatives of people.
I think this is the thing, though, as well. Like, we only hear about it or get it once it gets to the headlines, once it's gone through all of those steps. And
this is the biggest problem in politics right now.
Probably people like me, headline readers.
But you're not the problem. The media is the problem. Because the media backs sides instead of being independent. Actually going online and looking through like your country's media outlets, trying to find what the government has actually done in factual form is ridiculously hard to do.
Yeah, because that's when you get into the area, again, of the corruption of it and everything else. Well, not even corruption, let's not use that word.
Well, people will be paid off and people will be
just genuine like personal interest. Let's use the word biases instead. Because if somebody's donated a hefty sum to your organisation, you may be a little bit biased in your voting.
Like, again, I'm just thinking off the top of my head here, but if I was to like think to myself, how do I go and see what the Labour government has actually done in factual form? What bills have they put through the Parliament? What acts have they actually put into place? What have they done? Not what have they potentially got through. What have they done? I'd probably have to go onto the Parliament website and actually sift through all of it and actually read what the act is to then actually go, oh, so they've done this. Because there's no way I can do it from a newspaper. There's no way I can do it from a news channel because they're all so skewed.
Yeah.
They're also massively skewed, bro. And this is the problem at the moment with populism is they kind of see someone that they like and they think, oh, they'll be really good. The media then run with it and people buy it up because people don't actually look into what the hell the person is. So an example of that is President of the United States.
But as well, I think an example of that is potentially the Reform UK in itself. Because again...
The Reform Party is populism.
It's that snappy title. But I'm talking about like the wordage of it. Because again, anybody that's unhappy with how things are, they're like, reform, what, change? Correct. Instantly they think, oh, it's going to change to be better for me. But that's not necessarily the case. And this is kind of...
not the case.
This is why I wanted to do this episode. Because one, to kind of deepen my own understanding in the kind of political thing. But also ask, is it what it says on the tin?
Correct.
Is it reform? Is it change? Is it different to all of these times that we've been had X, Y, or Z promised to us and not upheld?
Sure. So by definition, yes. Would it be good? In my opinion, no.
Why not? Let's explore.
Well, I firmly believe, and I am someone who is probably more conservative, by voting.
Where would you put me, just out of curiosity?
I don't know. Probably, like, I'd say I'm like centre-right, which would be slightly conservative. But I also agree with things that Labour do. Like, I don't go to any of the extremes. Your extreme right being Nazis. Your extreme left being communists. I'd probably say you're more centre-left. I'd say you're more liberal than conservative.
What does that mean?
So, like, if I said something... So, if I said to you, like, do you think, like, the richest people in the country's wealth should be, like, redistributed to help other people?
No, not necessarily.
Do you think that, like, the threshold for, like, tax allowances should be higher? Do you think that taxes should be lower? Do you think that there should be, like, an NHS? Do you think like, private companies should own our rail network, or should we own our rail network? Do you think that, like, utility companies should be privately owned, or do you think that we should own them, as in the government and the people? That's where you would start to figure out where you are.
In terms of the tax and earnings, I think is a very tricky one, but I think I actually I think I actually came up with it. Of concepts that may be beneficial that isn't quite tax, which would be essentially a profit limit. So if you had, say for example, a profit limit on an item.
That alone would put you more left.
Fair enough. But again...
It's a fairer system. Whereas centre-right would be more capitalism is capitalism, baby. Being very general here before people get at me. I'm being obscenely generalist.
The thing is, I want people to innovate and everything else. And I think if you tax people too hard and restrict them too much, you will kind of limit that. And again, everybody has a right to make a buck off of their ideas, off of their intellectual property and everything else. But at the same time, if I'm growing an apple and because I know your field's a drought or whatever else, I'm charging you 3 times as much for it, that's just not being a decent human.
Correct.
Do you know what I mean? So as much as I'm for innovating and business and go make your money, I'm also like, hey, be a human, have some compassion. Like, it doesn't have to be a dog-eat-dog world out there. There is enough for everybody.
And that, to me, is more of a centrist view. There's no extremes. You know what I mean? Like, you're kind of both sides in one, because you have some values that are probably a bit more liberal, and you probably have some that are a bit more conservative and a bit more traditionalist. But you're not fully on either side. You're like the neutral zone that just wants everyone to come to the table so we could just hash this out.
If I'm not mistaken, it is probably the most hated position because you're hated by both sides.
No, neutral's the place to be. Centre gets things done. Let's never underestimate it. Centre gets things done. Because what a centrist really wants is everyone to come and sit here and just get this done. Let's just hash this out because you think this and you think this. So how about we do this? And then everyone goes, I can live with that.
Right.
I can live with that. That's the beauty of like being a centrist, but it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense because my understanding of war is for any war, whichever one you want to talk about, to end peacefully, both sides have to lose. That's the only way a fair agreement can be met. Because if one side benefits and the other side loses, unhappy. Vice versa,
and that's how good politics would work.
If both sides win, there's distrust.
Correct.
Whereas both sides lose, well, hey, I peed in your Cheerios, you peed in mine, now neither of us can have breakfast.
Yeah, but that's why I think that like being central in politics works. Because you can understand both sides. And unless they go out to the extremes, then no one understands that because you're Delulu. Right? Just point blank. You're Delulu. You've lost your barnet, mate. But if you understand the conservative point, you understand the liberal point, you're probably going to find somewhere in the middle where we can all agree and be friends and we're going to keep this moving and not shut everything down and become a donor. You know what I mean? Be a centrist daddy like me, man. Anyway, back to the reform stuff. The problem with that, so what do I think of reform? Well, I think they're actually racist.
Really?
Flat out, man. They're anti-immigrant. Bro, let's not get this concerned. They will say things like, no, we want control. They will say things like they want control immigration. They don't. They want no immigration. That in itself breeds racism, bro. It breeds racism. They are preying on people's vulnerability right now. And that's what I don't like. Because it's worked with you to a degree here. You see the name and you think, oh, that could be a good thing. It's got you in the door. And then they'll come along, may not work with you because you are very strong-minded and you're like, man, just leave me alone.
Don't get me wrong, it piqued my curiosity, but it didn't be like, hey, you're getting a vote from me.
But for some people, they could go to them and they'll be like, system ain't good, is it? They'd be like, not really. They'd be like, yeah. People stealing our jobs, aren't they? Well, maybe. And all of a sudden it snowballs. And now they've just kind of cracked into them and preyed on that fact that they're a little bit disgruntled with how the governments have been, and they've turned it into something obscene.
I feel bad for not giving the person credit because they are a proper comedian and they've made their money off the joke or whatever else. But they made the point that if an immigrant that doesn't speak a word of the language of the country can come in and take your job, maybe you did deserve the job in the first place.
Correct, right.
So, like, there's always going to be that argument of things, but then you've got the flip side of cheap labour and da-da-da-da-da-da.
So this is the thing, like, this is a really good example.
I just think there's a hefty accusation to throw around, so
I'll throw it, I don't care.
Yeah.
I firmly believe, maybe not all of them, but I believe that some of them are very racist. And I believe that they are a very far-right political party. I don't believe that they have good policy. I think they would be a very big net negative for this country. For example, they basically, their target is they're completely anti like net zero in terms of emissions. So whether you agree with climate change or not, the world will shift to greener energy. Fossil fuels will run out. Things will happen. You will need to shift to a different way of energizing the planet. They are basically saying, screw that. Screw that. Let's just dig through the country, find more oil. That in itself is destructive for so many reasons.
Yeah.
So that's a stupid policy, in my opinion. I'm sorry, but it is. I feel that's a real closed-minded policy. I think it's dumb. And my proof of that would be that you don't see Labour or the Conservatives saying, yeah, let's drill. They're actually very consciously saying, no. We need to start transitioning ourselves into something a bit more future-proof here. We need to start moving, which is what everyone else is doing and is the sensible thing to do. Whether you like electric vehicles or not, X, Y, Z, the logic is there to follow, right? You understand that we do need to actually start shifting a bit into a newer world or a better way of doing things, a cleaner way of doing things. You know what I'm saying? So to come out as a government and say, nah.
But then how much of
it's
that...
backwards.
So if I'm not mistaken, like on the energy side of things, although they are for drilling and all of that stuff, is there not kind of plans to explore more like nuclear and...
Yeah, but nuclear is also... but purely nuclear. And that has its drawbacks too. Incredibly expensive. Also, not great for your environment. Nuclear stuff lasts a long time. Look at Chernobyl.
Yeah, but again...
Look at Fukushima.
The thing is, though, bro, they're two places that nuclear has gone wrong, whereas there is... probably not mistaken. There's probably hundreds of places where nuclear has been done right. So to say that the two places where it's done wrong, do you know what I mean? Where like mishaps happen.
But again, when your economy isn't at its strongest point right now, and we are sliding down the world's table of economies, where are you finding the money to start nuclear? You see my point? It's not, to me, it's not balanced. To me, they don't have proper in-depth actual policies about things. To me, they have headlines because that's what they want. Also, their leader, I don't like him. I think he's done bad things for this country, and I think he gets away with it, and that's something that I think you would kind of resonate with.
Yeah, bro.
This guy spearheaded things that have been bad for this country, and no one grills him about it, bro. Like, he doesn't get held to account for it. Now, I know that, like, the Prime Minister will get held to account for things because you're in charge of the country. You should be held accountable for things. If you do something that people don't think is right, the media should go up to you and go, are you dumb? You see my point? In a better way, obviously, right? But also, to me, if you are a political figure who is getting a lot of media attention, who is a leader of a party, you should be held to account too, because you have sway. You have the ability to make people think something. Now, we've just had a whole bunch of local elections for like councils and mayors, which is where they have done very well. That's why they're getting a lot of headlines now. Because people are going, oh, they're actually a party of contention. No, they got a bunch of councillors because there was a bunch of people in England, because it was only England, who clearly went, you know what, I'm sick and tired of the Tories, and I'm sick and tired of Labour, so I'm going to let them know that I'm sick and tired of them. And that's just them putting their finger up to people. That's what that is. It should be a wake-up call to the government, because if they don't start to address it, it will become a problem. Because that's when the country goes, you know what, I've tried this, I've tried doing the right thing, I've tried telling you I'm not happy, you haven't listened. I voted so you would understand, you still haven't listened. So now when it's time to vote for the real thing, which is the government of power, I'm going to do it again because you still haven't listened. And that's when you get problems. And that's when you do get governments that don't really know what they're doing. Actually, they kind of keep all their kind of darkest stuff kind of a bit down here so you don't see it. But then when they get into power and they have the majority so they can pass things through, they then come out like that Jack in the Box and go, ah.
But see, that's what I think.
Hey, surprise, guys. If you ain't this colour, bye. That's what's going to happen, bro.
I think every party has that version, has their version of that, though.
But some go darker than others, bro.
100%, bro.
Some go too far down. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure a lot of parties will have MPs that are a bit slimy and will probably do things they shouldn't do. But there's levels of slime. You know what I mean? There's like, I've pocketed a bit of money. And then there's, that boat is coming over here and it's full of families from a war-torn country. Well, instead of bringing them in and then assessing them and being like, wagwan, we're just literally just going to push it that way and just be like, one's real deep, bro. One is like, that's naughty. That's naughty. Has he been fired? He's been sacked. I'm fine. One is like, that don't sit with my ethics. That don't sit with my morals and my values, you know?
I think the big thing, especially after like what we've had the last few years, people generally are sick of the government.
They are.
In one way or another. And I think that's why reform's doing so well. Because again, the trigger word, it initiates the idea of change. And that's what people want. But like you said, you kind of sneak in, right. you hide the tablet inside the sweet. Do you know what I mean?
Of course.
So then what are the things that they want to do on the back end that they're hiding for the minute or not mentioning? And
you won't know until it happens, mate.
But every party has that. And that's what I think needs to be...
degree, though. That's my point. Like, America is a good example. He said a lot of stuff. They were like, yeah, I don't like this anymore. I want to change it. You can't. It's too late now. You've set that ball down that hill and you can't stop it anymore. Because it's going to keep on going, man. Even
that, you've got a choice. Like, you don't have your choice of the best people to run the country in any sense. If you do have the chance to vote for somebody, chances are they've put a bank of money into getting to that position.
We are different. We are capped on that here. And it is very closely monitored. We are not America. America is grotesque in the amount of money they spend on elections. We are not the same.
We may be limited or whatever else, but again, far smaller country, far less land to travel around. There's far more limitations in which, I don't know what the caps are or how they necessarily work, but I'd still say they relatively work roughly the same, no?
No. I don't think so. I think the difference in the money is the difference in the advertising and the difference in the way that you do things.
But then I see where you're...
Also, the election systems are very different.
I see what you're saying, but then
the American election system.
What's that word you keep throwing about?
Populism.
That's the one. Is that necessarily affected by money? For example, Trump gets freaking heavy on X and all of that stuff, and he tries to actually get down with the people. That doesn't necessarily cost him that much money.
Well, it doesn't cost him anything.
Exactly. So...
No, money and the populism stuff, you've got a very valid point. Populism is exactly what it is. People are popular because they're getting spread around. They're just getting themselves in the right places.
But then as well, you've got people that play shady with that. Like, what was it? Was it Kamala Harris or whatever her face was paying people to endorse her and all of that stuff in their election?
They all do that.
But again, like, just run an honest freaking thing. Like, all of this shell games, all of this da-da-da-da-da-da. Like, bro, it just creates a toxic environment from the freaking get-go.
I agree with you, but this is where my biggest problem with politics at the moment comes into play, especially in the UK, right? Is people are uninformed.
Hello!
Okay. But would you say the government's doing a good job or a bad job right now? Shoot from the hip. Don't overthink it. Shoot from the hip. I've knocked on your door. I'm canvassing for a party. How do you think the government's doing right now, mate?
Do you know what? It's bad, but I'd have been instinctively, I'd have said okay.
Okay, what makes you say okay? Because that's very ambivalent. That's not a positive or a negative.
Simply because there are currently countries in the middle of wars. There are countries flourishing and seeing heights of... I don't feel we're neither of those. So it's not all come burning to the ground yet, but it don't feel great. Like we've mentioned it many, many times. The level of optimism for life in the UK is fairly dim. But it's not kind of detrimental levels like you don't know if you're going to wake up tomorrow.
Sure.
But you're kind of uncertain about next year or next 5 years.
But in a way, that's kind of going to help reaffirm my point, right? You've used your brain, right? You haven't gone straight for a...
Is that why that hurts?
But you haven't instinctively gone, oh, no, they're doing rubbish. You've just gone, well, considering I'm not being blown up,
but again, like
I can still hold down a job.
But this is part of being a centrist, though. Is like I see, like, yeah, you're not doing things perfect. Like, I can see, look, you lied here, 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 and here. Yes. But you did kind of hold your end up here, here, and here. But it doesn't excuse...
In a weird way, as a centrist, you're probably never going to be 100% happy with the government. There's always going to be something they're doing that you think they could do better. But
isn't there a centrist party?
Not really.
Can someone create one, or can we become one?
But
me and you.
But this is the interesting thing, right? The moment we have now, I would describe as somewhat... He is on the left side, but I would describe him as closer to centre than a lot of people in that party may be.
Is that Starmer?
Yes. Now, I think he's got as much personality as bloody Dryboard, right? But that's a good thing. He's the leader of the country. I don't want personality, bro. I want a man or woman that's going to go into meetings and represent my country. I want you to get things done. I don't want you to be Boris Johnson going, blah, 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 blah. I don't want you to be Farage going, oh, I'm drinking a pint, mate. I don't want you to be Donald Trump doing this and that. Everything's beautiful. I just want you to lead my bloody country. So I want you to be vanilla. Because you're going to get things done. Just go and do it. You're going to have the factor of respect from world leaders because you are a world leader. So as long as you don't do anything dumb, you'll be okay. Just go in there, talk sense, talk numbers, talk figures, and get things done. I don't want to see a clown on BBC News because he's hiding in a milk truck or something like Boris Johnson used to do, bro. Just be a politician. Be a prime minister. It's like, I don't need crackheads. I just need people to do their job.
I'm not going to lie, though. I've seen him in interviews, and the moment he gets hard good, he's got the spine of a jellyfish. Like, I do not think it's somebody that should be running the country. Like, I get where you're coming from or whatever else, but I've seen... bro, I do not watch politics freaking at all. But the little I have seen of the dude, he freaking crumbles. And I genuinely do not want to...
When have you seen him crumble?
Anytime he gets kind of like questioned about the things that he's failed on or anything like that, he ends
politicians being politicians.
I hear you, but even that is a scapegoat. Like, bro, we've got to stop allowing politicians to get away with that and expect more from our politicians.
I do agree with that.
You can't just be like, politicians lie. Okay, cool. Let's stop that. If you're a politician and you lie, we're going to put an end to you. You're going to be fired. You're not going to work in politics no more. Bye-bye, we're not interested.
I agree with that.
It needs to be filtered out. Yeah. So then when they say we're going to do this, this and this, cool. We the people are going to hold you to that.
Correct.
And if you don't, we the people are going to vote you out or drag you out and you're going to get done with it because this is our country for all of us. Not for one person, not for one type of people, one demographic. It's a freaking lump of land on a planet that none of us are freaking going to be here for any significant amount of time for. So stop screwing it up.
I agree.
There are so many things that we can do far better than sling freaking turds at each other and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then crap ourselves on the back end. That's what annoys me so much about politics is, yes, there is complex things about it, like life. There are complex things about life. You can make it as hard as you want, or you can make it as simple as you want. But it always starts with you. If you're the person steering the ship and you're a freaking donut, your ship's gonna sink. True. It might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, but it's gonna sink.
True.
And there are so many people, and that's probably the thing. They get a short stint of time in there. So maybe they don't quite make it sink in their time, and then the next person kind of patches a few holes and makes a few different holes or whatever else. But bro, the sinking in general needs to stop. We need somebody to run on simple freaking policies that they can actually uphold. I don't want false promises, this, that, and everything. Don't be grandiose. Be realistic. Look, cool, if we're going to have 4 or 5 rough years, say that. Be honest about it, but at least let me know it's going to pay off on the back end.
Well, this is the thing I think is like my final point for this episode, is I think people would feel a lot better, generally, about their government, specifically us right now, if we knew what they were doing. And that, I think, is the problem. People are uninformed. And when you're uninformed, it is easy to be negative. Because you're uninformed, you don't really see if it's having any impact on you. So you instinctively think, oh, they're screwing up the country, aren't they? Oh, they're doing this, they're doing that. So what then happens is you get a bunch of people who get disgruntled and then start doing silly things. Well, I say silly. Silly in my opinion. To them, probably admirable. But this is when you get parties like Reform on the rise. It's because these people are disgruntled. They think that the government's screwing up. They think the government's letting in a whole bunch of illegal immigrants. They think that they're raising their taxes and they're screwing up housing and all this. Because they don't actually know. And if you don't know, and I come to you as a canvasser, like an advertiser for their party, and I say, mate, they're coming for your jobs because they're letting them in, and you're never going to get on the housing ladder because they're not doing this, you're more inclined to buy it. Because it then takes a level of mental fortitude to be like, I can't be bothered to listen to you, mate. Whereas a lot of people, suddenly it kind of sinks in. And all of a sudden the brain starts turning and you start going, yeah, do you know what? They ain't done nothing for me. And it's like, well, actually, whoa. If we actually just had a fair media outlet somewhere that was saying, this is what they have done definitively. And if I came to you as a fair, impartial, this is the black and white stats, mate. And it was the next election, I came to you and I went, all right, John, I need you to vote, mate, because this is what we should do. This is what you're doing it based on. This is what they've done over 5 years. At least then you could go and make an informed decision, right? Because you're either going to go, well, actually, that seems like a fair crack. And I can see that if I give them 5 more years, a lot of these things are going to become really good because they've had the time to do it. They've had a decade. So over a decade, instead of it being, well, they haven't got the rail network back in their hands, have they? Or they haven't corrected the tax stuff yet, have they? They haven't done this. It could become a case of, well, actually, if I give them the second term, I can see where they're going to do it because they've laid the framework.
Ironically, and that's what people have said about Trump.
Yeah, well, he's in his last term, so bugger off. But you can see where you come from, right? You have then a very informed decision. So you can either take that and go, I think they can do it. I think they will actually do it. And then I think the country will be a lot better off for it. Amazing. Or you can go, do you know what? I can see the stats. I think you're full of rubbish. I'm bringing someone else in. And at least then, it's a fairer system.
I think the thing is, though, as well, like, bro, everybody's idea of a perfect country, whether it be the UK, the USA, Canada, Russia...
The UAE. Sorry, I just wanted to get all the U's out of the way.
Yeah, wherever it may be, right?
I wasn't all the U's, I'm a fraud.
It's not. But,
Uganda.
Hey. Uruguay.
Uruguay.
Is that not one?
Yes.
Yeah, see? Right, made me doubt myself.
Paraguay?
Yeah, it's one of the... Ukraine. For God's sake, this tangent time.
You're good at this, mate. Well done. What about why? You got anything for why?
York.
It's a city. It's not a country, homie.
Anything for Y. There is one with Y.
There is.
Damn it, what is it? I'm trying not to. I don't want to create dead air now. You've sent me on a tangent and I forgot what I was going to say. Damn you.
Yemen.
What did you say just before we started all of the tangents?
I just gave you a country name, by the way. It's Yemen.
Anyway.
You got Yemen and Oman.
So I remember you can tell it's the back end of the episode, isn't it?
Hey, I've been serious all episode. Don't even, bro. Time for the ADHD to come out.
Fair. There's
I was talking about having like an informed choice and an impartial media outlet that would actually tell you what the governments have done, because I don't think people actually know. I don't think people are as informed as they should be about what their government is actually doing.
But that's the thing, like what we said earlier on, there's so much that happens, so many promises that are made that people don't actually either get to see them if they pay off or get to see. Like, there's how many freaking political parties are there in total for the UK?
Labour.
7 or 8, I think.
Tories, Lib Dems, Reform, Green. The UK. Plaid Cymru, SNP.
Independents.
Independents, they're not parties. They're people that don't have a party.
Okay.
You got a bunch of offshoots, bro, as well.
All right. Anyway, let's just say that there's more than enough.
Monster Raven, Lunatic Party.
But it's hard to keep track of. It's hard to know what each of these people are running on, what their policies are. There's going to be some overlap. Some of these people are going to do good and bad. There's going to be ebbs and flows through all of it. But I think we're so used to taking the kind of poison with the kind of medicine in that sense, where it's just like, yeah, they'll fix this part, but then they'll ruin this part. They'll ruin that part, but then they'll fix this part. And we need to put an end to that. You've got to stop having that scapegoat of, yeah, we've done this, so forgive that. No. If any one of us, civilians, done that in our job and was like, yeah, I know I burnt down the bus station, but the people are alive, you'd be like, yeah, you're sacked, mate. Like, come on. So we need to actually start chasing things up on the back end, actually hold these people accountable. Bro, there needs to be so many instances for businesses and for people where they can't. Scapegoat mentality allows for so much stuff. There is so much backlash that should have come from all of the COVID stuff, that should have come from all of the stuff with wars that we've been in and everything else. The politicians and kind of higher ups have never really caught the backlash of.
No, and there was, but they've moved on from their posts. So then everyone was just like, whatever.
But do you see?
But to me, like, once you move past that post, they should be coming after you even more. You're a civilian.
But
you're a civilian, homie. It's time for you to face the consequences of what you just done. I know you were in Parliament, but you're still a civilian. You're still under the same laws as I am. But so they should have thrown the book at them, but they didn't.
But ain't that the old adage of it's not about what you know, it's who you know?
Money talks,
bro. Or what you got there, yeah.
Money talks,
That's different.
Money talks, bro. But it's scandalous, bro.
That's the thing, like, the political game is a massive shell game. And, like, genuinely, we've been talking about this for God knows how long. I've looked into this multiple times before, and I've still not wrapped my head around it any further. It's still, all of them are going to give you a pick and mix of lies and truths, and this is what we want to do, this is what we might do, this is a good idea. Oh, our friend Steve thought about this thing, and we're going to chuck that in there too. And then when they get in there, they might do half of that stuff, they might fail at half of that stuff and succeed at the other half, but then they're going to do a bunch of other stuff that they never even mentioned as well.
No, but in a weird way, if I voted for a party and they'd done half of their manifesto promises, I'd take that. Because in the time span they have...
That's a disappointing statement.
In 5 years, bro, if you get the full 5 years, that's not a lot of time to do massive changes at country level.
I hear you, but shouldn't
the other thing that people forget as well is it's so layered, bro. Because one thing people say is, what's the government done for me? Well, they can change things that might impact you. Taxation, stuff like that, right? But on the grand scheme, they're changing things that affect the country, not necessarily you. A lot of the issues that people have in day to day are at local level. And your local level, which is your council, may not even be run by the same damn party. And that's when it gets all mad. And they'll see that on the next episode when it comes further down the line.
Yeah, bro. When you start getting
Because that gets a whole different thing, bro.
But again, it's just dividing the house and making a shell game.
Your
Do you know what I
mayors
mean?
are from different parties.
Yeah.
London has a Labour mayor and has had a Labour mayor for a long time, but we had a Conservative government in the country.
But this is why it gets so confusing. And I think it's made confusing on purpose. So that the civilians don't... It's like lawyer speak.
I mean, it is, but then like the thing, so that's another thing that would be like a more leftist policy, right? Is devolution of power, which is where power starts coming down closer to the people. So instead of just the parliament going, this is it for everyone, you start to have more sections that then take care of their sections. So, for example, parliament does lay structure for country, but then Scotland has their own parliament. And they have some laws that are slightly different to ours. Their taxation is slightly different. If I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong. Certain uni's free up there if you're Scottish. It's not in England. Wales have a parliament. Northern Ireland has one, but that is a whole episode of this one. That's a whole different boy. Yeah, that has history. So there are 4 parliaments for the 4 home countries. And then within those parliaments is your councils and your boroughs and things like that, and your mayors. Like, the whole idea is that they are meant to be able to... It's like working for a company. Think of like where like a branch, like when I work at my branch, right? We have a general manager. So that branch is her problem. But every department has its own figurehead, right? So for most things, that department head can take care of it. But every so often, something serious enough goes up that we have to go to the top for them to then go, aye, this is it. This is what we do. And you go, aye, we take that. Then every so often, something goes above them. So now you're talking regional. So now they have a cluster. And every so often, something goes above them. So now we have a director. So now we're talking country.
Yeah.
And then every so often, something goes above them. Now we're talking whole company. That is how government works.
But this is the thing,
CEO,
bro. I don't...
Prime Minister. Then it comes down.
In reality, I genuinely don't see any countries. I only see companies. To me, the UK is a company. The USA is a company. India, China, they are each companies. We are an employee of the UK. You pay taxes, you have your role in the country, and blah, 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 blah. Like, each of those countries are driving their own initiatives. They have their own objectives. They have their own things that they're doing. Yes, it's where we live and da-da-da. But to me, they genuinely are all countries. So all of these MPs, all of the politicians that get into it, they are exactly as you say, managers, regionals, this, that, and everything else. But they just don't ever say that, because then it seems a bit like slavery. And it just feels like we're all trapped in, forced to work for this people, that people do this. And realistically, we kind of are. Like, there's I don't know how prevalent it is in the UK, but these kind of like free law or old law folk, where they're like, I'm going to live by the law of the land opposed to common law, or other way around, common law opposed to civil law, where they basically renounce their birth certificates, they renounce any kind of government ID, and they're like, yeah, I'm a person of the land, I'm not a member of the civilian population kind of thing. And they essentially like disassociate. I know it's far bigger over in America than it is in the UK. But I think it is part, or increasing in parts of the UK anyway.
Interesting.
But yeah, is there any more that you want to wrap up for this? We've rambled quite a lot on that.
I think I said quite a lot, mate. I think we could do a second part way down the line.
Well, I definitely want to see how this all comes out and see if, you never know, however this turns out, better or worse, or whoever ends up in charge, it's going to shape how the country moves, how our lives change and go forward. Look, straight away, you're talking tax, you're talking friggin' NHS, you're talking education, you're talking all of the things that are going to affect every person one way or another.
Bro,
Either what you're spending, what you're making,
yeah.
how you're living, where you're living.
Bro, it's like the amount of things that government that has to deal with. I don't think people can fully kind of get their head around that.
Oh, it literally has to be every aspect of life. I thought about this earlier, surprisingly enough, with the kind of power cuts that have been going on around the world. That, bro, think how much it would cost the country if, say, London went dark for 24 hours. Or how much they would save in energy bills. Like, the amount of kilowatt hours, or however you frame the use of electricity, that the whole city would use in 24 hours, that would be thousands, if not millions of pounds worth of energy.
True. But I'm just looking, I'm just looking up, but like, I'm just like, let me see like the actual cabinet for the government, which is the Prime Minister's team. So they all have their own departments, right? So Starmer is the Prime Minister. You've then got a Deputy Prime Minister who's also the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government. You've got the Chancellor of the Exchequer, so the banker. You've got Minister for Intergovernmental Relationships. You've got Secretary of State for Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Affairs. Secretary of State for the Home Department. One for Defense. One for State of Justice. One for Healthcare. One for Education and Women and Equalities. One for Energy, Security and Net Zero. One for Work and Pensions. Business and Trade. Science, Innovation, Technology. For transport, environment, food and rural affairs, culture, media and sport. One for Northern Ireland, one for Scotland, one for Wales.
One sec, bro, because you're kind of digging a hole here, right? Because the longer this list goes on, to me, there's less excuse for failure because you've got enough kind of, damn it, I've lost the word. Enough kind of, not deviation, but what's it when you disperse amongst people? Delegation. Like you've got enough people to delegate to that you should be able to carry the load. Again, he's not got to sit there personally look into the ins and outs of energy or education or whatever else. He's got a team of people that he says, look, go research this, bring me back the key points for this, the things that I need to have a say on or needs my attention. So now, if you're saying that they're failing, or not you, but obviously historically, all of these parties fail on some of their policies. Well, that tells me some of your people have failed. So maybe it's not a case of the whole government needs to change. Maybe we just need to go, okay, cool, switch out a few people. Because 70, 80% of this government may be good or that government may be good. We just need to tweak the last 20%. But because it's either, no, we get this or that, like, I think it is... What's the thing with how many seats a certain party has? What is that in terms of like the sway of a decision?
As in how you win an election?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have... so a seat basically is like an area of land. And they are the representative for that area of land. So, like, London has 32, for example, based on the boroughs.
Yeah.
It spreads out across the... I can't remember what the hell it's called, but like a jurisdiction, basically. It's got a different term, but...
Counties?
No. There's a specific name for, like, the parliamentary seats and how that is worked out. But anyways, so there's a certain number across the UK, and most winners. So, like, Labour has, like, silly amount, but they have the majority of the seats in Parliament.
Maybe
so they are the leading party.
Maybe I'm thinking about America's stuff where it's like they had the House and the Senate were the same affiliation. Like I think they had like is it a Republican Senate and a Republican president? Or
yes, that does happen. So in America, for things to really get done, you need all three to line up. Because then they'll probably pass most things and agree on most things unless they're...
So do we have that same here? That's what I think I was trying to get at. I just don't know how to frame the question.
Yeah, so how it works here is the Prime Minister is of the party that has the most seats, unless it's a coalition. So right now, Keir Starmer is the Labour leader. He is the Prime Minister because they have the vast majority of the seats in the Parliament. The rest is made up of opposition parties. So the people who basically say, no, don't like it, boo, and say posh stuff. And then you have the House of Lords, which is basically people who have been elected to go there because they're like part for all sorts of reasons. That thing needs to be abolished, bro. No, if you look it up, you'll get angry. Like hereditary peers, stuff like that. People who get titles because they're born into it. Nonsense like that.
I think I know my school once had trips to like the different houses and all of that. Or
just the two.
No, yeah, but we had 3 splits in our school. So there was one would go. I think one went to the House of Lords. One went to the horse racing. No, was it the horse? There was 3 different places. I
the
forget.
Horse racing, bro. What school did you go to?
A sports academy.
The horse racing. You can go to the House of Parliament. You can go to the horse racing. I would be vexed if I was going to Parliament.
What were the damn things in my school? I'm going to have to look that up now because now I can't remember. Damn, I feel old. Bro, it's such a thing that we can actually say we were born in the 1900s now. Like, we're so deep into the 2000s that the 1990s are freaking seem like way back when.
Let's wrap this thing up before I have an existential crisis.
Well, that is probably good. But I need a seed. And considering we've been talking political for God knows how long now, it would be kind of nice if I had one that was somewhat relevant. I mean, there's 3 parties. You've kind of got to pay for them somehow. The cost, where is it going to come from? You and me? Them? Who pays for all of these decisions that the government make? Oh, Dave's taking it for the team.
We do.
It always sits on us. It's their decisions, it's their rigmarole that they run around. But like we said, how much do they get away with? And they're just like, oh, I'll give up my seat and get out of politics and bye-bye off by Todd. That's all it wrote for me. Seriously think about that. Think about the people that we are electing and think how can we hold them accountable. Not just to the things that they say they're going to do, but the things that they don't do. Because if anything, that's the bigger thing they're going to do and fail on more than you ever could imagine. So actually hold these people accountable because it's us that pay the price. Not them. They live fairly cushy lives, considering. So genuinely hold them accountable for their statements, for their policies, for all of the remarks that they make. They chose to be in politics. They chose to try to lead the country. It's down to us to make sure they do it right. All the best, and we'll catch you on the next one.